Yo, what's going on, guys? I am back for the 2023-2024 season. I know I've been on a long hiatus, but my life has been crazy. I haven't been able to do that much this year. A lot of other stuff going on. I'm not going to bore you with all the details and everything, but just so you know, I'm back for this season, this year, and I'll be uploading weekly, just like I was before. And with all that being said, I have my preseason top 25 ready for you guys. I looked at a bunch of different teams this year. There's a few teams I have on the outside that could have been put around like the 24-25 end, but you're going to see what I ended up doing with the list, and I'll explain each team and why they're in that order. Alright, so here's my top 25. I'm going to start this by going from 1 all the way to 25, explaining why I have each team where they're at, and my overall opinion on each team as the season goes on. Starting with the defending national champion, Georgia Bulldogs, I have them at number 1. As like everyone else does. You can interchange them with Michigan in some people's eyes, but I think Georgia is the best team, and let me explain why. I think Georgia is better than Michigan because I think they're just more talented than Michigan, and they play the exact type of football they do. So to me, in my mind, Michigan is basically like a step below Georgia, playing the same exact style, except Georgia, I think they have the better quarterback, which he hasn't been proven. But when you compare each team's style, Michigan likes to run the ball. They're gonna want to run the ball. Georgia does not let you run on them. They will not let Michigan run on them, in my opinion, which means Michigan, JJ McCarthy are going to have to throw the ball to win that game, and I don't trust him to be able to throw to victory like CJ Stroud was about to do with Ohio State last year. JJ McCarthy is not on that level, and that's just why I do not see Michigan being able to conquer that task in beating Georgia. And after that, I have Ohio State. Ohio State brings back their entire defense, basically, and their entire offense. Other than their quarterback, CJ Stroud, they're starting either Devin Brown or Kyle McCord. I don't know who it's going to be. No one knows who it's going to be, but whoever it is, I honestly believe they're going to be fine. Ohio State's going to kind of be like the same team they were last year, except it's going to be on that defense to actually make improvements like they were supposed to last year. As we saw in the Michigan game, they didn't make many improvements because they still got gashed the same exact way 2 years in a row, and their offense was very one-dimensional. So starting this year, I really do believe that Michigan is better than Ohio State. They're better on offense, not passing the ball. They're better at running. Obviously, their offensive line is insane. Their defense is really good. Ohio State, if their defense is really good this year, they'll have a shot at beating Michigan, but I don't really see it happening at the beginning of the year. Then next after Ohio State, I have LSU, and LSU is playing Florida State week 1. This game is honestly going to decide who I put above Ohio State, I think, because if LSU wins, I probably will put them at the 3 spot. If FSU wins, I'll probably end up putting them at the 3 spot or 4 spot. But it really depends like how they win, if it's like a walk-off by 1 point again like it was last year or not. But anyway, LSU returns a lot. They return a lot on defense. Hopefully their secondary is going to be better this year. That was a big problem for them last year. They do bring back Harold Perkins. That is their best player on defense, and he's going to cause havoc for a lot of these teams. And on the other side of the ball, LSU, they're going to have a good run game, even though there's not a lot of experience. They do have Jaden Daniels, their quarterback, and he was really good last year, but he was really spotty at times. So I'm really looking for LSU to have some consistency at the quarterback spot. I'm looking for them to be just consistent in general, because last year they weren't consistent, and with that consistency, I could see them making the playoffs this year. And after them, we have the Crimson Tide of Alabama. I have Alabama at the 5 spot. They return a lot on defense. They did lose Will Anderson, but their entire secondary is still there, and I think their secondary is going to be a lot better than it was last year. A lot of teams gashed them, especially Tennessee. I do not think that's going to happen again. They're going to be better. But the problem with Alabama is their offense. I know, like, running the ball, they should be okay. They do have a true freshman back there, but a lot of people are very high on him. I'm pretty high on him as well. The biggest problem is they don't have a quarterback. They don't know who the quarterback is going to be, and the 3 quarterbacks they do have are not ready to play. And I think that's going to be the problem and the struggle for Alabama in the beginning of the year. They might even lose to Texas that day in Alabama to Quinn Ewers, just like they almost did last year. And they have a couple other games that they can also lose. Alabama, they could either be 13-0 if they figure everything out, or they could be 9-3 at the end of this year. It's really a toss-up, but I do believe that they're better than USC, which is why I put them at the 5th spot. And then speaking about USC, I do have them at that 6th spot. They do have a couple transfers that I do want to talk about, like Barrett Alexander on that defensive line. That's a big pickup for them. Their defense was awful last year, other than like the turnovers. They were getting turnovers like candy last year. Highly unlikely that that happens again, so they really have to strengthen that part of their game if they want to contend for a college football championship championship. Because let's be honest, their offense is fine. They did have to replace a running back, but they still have Caleb Williams and they still have receivers on the outside that are going to catch the ball and torch these teams with less comparable defenses. But we'll see. They could surprise us this year or not. Alex Grinch has never had a good defense, either at Oklahoma or at USC, so I guess we'll just have to find out. And then right after USC, I have Penn State. Now, Penn State, a lot of people are high on Penn State because of Drew Aller and what they're bringing with Nick Singleton at running back, and their defense is loaded. But if I was a Penn State fan, I would have a few worries. And my worries would really be a quarterback with Drew Aller, just because I know he's accurate. I know he just came out of high school, but looking at the highlights that he had last year or off his snaps, he got frazzled pretty easily. If you do get to him, he does keep his eyes downfield, but the throws that he makes aren't necessarily the best. And I know that could be improved with coaching and over time, but he is also not that quick. He has escapability, but you never have to worry about him as a running threat, which means Penn State will be a pocket passing team. And depending on the pass rush of some of these teams like Ohio State and Michigan, it's really going to depend if he can fix those little kinks. If he can, Penn State will be really good this year. They'll probably be able to beat Ohio State, maybe even Michigan. But if not, I see them losing to both of them again. Also, James Franklin hasn't had the best luck with pocket passing quarterbacks as we've seen in the past with Hackenberg and a couple others. Penn State has seen real success with people like Trace McSorley, even Sean Clifford. Sean Clifford wasn't good in big games, but his escapability and is able to run the ball gave them like that extra dynamic. And obviously with Trace McSorley and Saquon Barkley, they were the second ranked team in the country with them. So we'll just have to see if those can be corrected, and I hope the best for Penn State. Moving on to number 8, I got the Florida State Seminoles. They bring back everything that they had from last year. Their quarterback, Jordan Travis, it feels like he's been there for 6 years. Maybe it is 6 or 5, something like that. Their defense with Verse is the best player on defense in the ACC in my mind. If he's able to continue to grow and get better, and their defense takes another leap forward in the secondary, this team's going to be really good. The reason why they are not above Penn State right now is because Penn State, they're seasoned everywhere except for quarterback, and Florida State had an issue with their secondary last year and consistent quarterback play from Jordan Travis. They lost to all the good teams they played. They did beat up on all the lower competition, which is expected. They did beat OU in their bowl game, but OU was not good at all and they barely won that game. So they have a lot to prove this year. Moving on, right behind them is the Clemson Tigers. Honestly, these two are kind of interchangeable for me too, because Cade Klubnik for Clemson, I think he's going to be really good this year with Garrett Riley as their offensive coordinator. I think people are really doubting Clemson, but they have a great offensive coordinator right now. Their defense is going to be really good. Their secondary is going to be better. It wasn't that good last year. They bring back the running back, Will Shipley. He's probably going to be one of the best in the ACC and in the country. I really see Clemson being the team to beat still in the ACC. I just think Florida State returns more, and I think that their ceiling is probably higher than Clemson, but I think Clemson might be the better team. It really just depends. They play like week 4 or week 5 in the season, so we're going to find out pretty fast. And closing out my top 10, I have Washington. Washington, another team that returns everything they have. Their defense last year wasn't the best, but I think it's going to take a big leap. And they might even be the best defense other than Utah in the Pac-12 this year. And then look what they return on offense. They return their quarterback, Penix. He's been there for like 4 or 5 years. Their wide receivers, they're just going to have a field day. I think Washington has a big chance of winning the Pac-12 along with USC. Utah might have something to say about that. They have the last 2 years. They've been beating up on USC. But I truly think Washington has a good shot at doing it. The Pac-12 is going to be a little brutal. There's a lot of teams, as you guys can see. I have USC, Washington, Utah, Oregon, and Oregon State all around that like a 6 to 15 area. It's going to be a hard conference to go through with less than 1 loss, which they might need to get to the playoff. And then next, I kind of had a hard decision between Tennessee and Texas because Texas returns a lot. They do lose Bijan Robinson, but they do bring back Quinn Ewers, Xavier Worthy. They have a great offense. I think their defense is going to be a lot improved, but Texas is always that team that underperformed, so I decided to slide them below Tennessee. Tennessee is still going to have a really good offense. They are replacing their 2 wide receivers, Cedric Tillman and Jalen Hyatt, as well as their quarterback, Hendon Hooker, and Joe Milton is going to get his chance to finally start and show what he's made of. And he gave Clemson the work last year, but we're going to have to see if he can transition to this year and then have those other wide receivers step up and help him succeed. And then Tennessee's defense I think is going to be better. Their secondary might even be a little bit better. I know they're pretty good at stopping the run. People do give Tennessee a lot of flack for how bad their defense is, but they're returning basically everybody. Their defensive line is solid, and I think the secondary is going to be a little bit better. So I had to put them above Texas, again, for those reasons. And then coming right after those two, I have Utah. Utah's been disrespected in every poll. I think they're like 15 or something like that in the AP. I slid them up a couple spots just because I think they're better than Notre Dame and Oregon. They're returning Cam Rising. He's coming back again. He's an amazing quarterback. Utah always has a really good defense, and they're coached very well. They might have a top 5 coach in the entire sport at Kyle Whittingham. By the way, I'm really high on Notre Dame this year. They got a transfer in Sam Hartman. He threw for a lot of yards at Wake Forest. He was really good on offense. That was what Notre Dame was missing. While Notre Dame simultaneously has a really good defense, and they're going to have a decent run game. So they are very well polished, but I have not seen Marcus Freeman do much. He was very consistent last year as being the coach. He could be really good this year with the upgrades he has, but that's the amount of respect I have for Utah. I put them up in front of Notre Dame. Again, they're kind of interchangeable in my eyes, but I still have questions about Notre Dame having Sam Hartman as quarterback. They have a new offensive coordinator. They're all one left to become the offensive coordinator for Alabama. So there's a lot of things that Notre Dame has to work out before I could put them higher. And then right after Notre Dame, I have Oregon sitting at the 15th spot. They bring back their quarterback, Bo Nix, for his 6th or 7th year. Oregon kind of has a lot to replace. Even on the offense and defensive side of the ball, they are decent on both sides, but not like the teams in front of them. I think Dan Lanning is going to have Oregon in a good spot, though. I feel like they are going to lose a couple games this year, just like last year. But that also depends if they show improvements throughout the year, because like I said, the Pac-12 is going to be tough. They might even lose 3 games to those other teams. We have to see. But I think Oregon definitely is top 15 team, and they're rounding out my top 15. Moving on to number 16, I have Kansas State. Kansas State, they bring back Will Howard. He came in last year, and he is obviously the better quarterback. He is a big dude. He's 240 pounds, 6'5". He played very well for K-State. K-State, they do lose Deuce Vaughn, but I do think that they're going to be a really good team, whoever they have at running back next. Their defense also is going to play very well. Kansas State, I'm excited to see what they do. I do have them losing 3 games this year, but overall, they are a really solid team. I really like what their coach is doing. They kind of remind me of Utah, but kind of like a lesser version of Utah. So respect for K-State. And after them, I have Oregon State. Oregon State, they have transferred DJ Uiagalelei. It was just announced that he won the starting job, so he's going to be their starting quarterback. They have a really good defense. They, along with Utah, might have the best defense in the Pac-12. Washington, I know I said Washington might. Those 3 teams have really good defenses, and it's going to be hard to pinpoint who's better until we see some games, but I do think they're going to be really good. Their offense with DJ can be a lot better, especially if he can sync up with their offensive coordinator. And I got some high hopes for the Beavers. They had their first 10-win season last year, and they might even get back to there this year. And after them, I have the Wisconsin Badgers. Yes, I put them above TCU. A lot of people are going to hate that. TCU fans, I'm sorry. But Wisconsin, I think they're a sleeper team. They bring in Tanner Mordecai, who's from SMU. Great passer of the football. Their offensive coordinator is an air raid type of guy. They have a really good running back in Braylon Allen. And Wisconsin's defense, it's always one of the best defenses in the country. And especially with Luke Fickell, they're going to have a good defense. This team is a sleeper team. If Tanner Mordecai can make throws and their offensive weapons can perform well, this team is going to be really good. I have them winning the Big Ten West. And honestly, the only questions I have for Wisconsin is Tanner Mordecai, him being consistent, and then the wide receivers, because I don't know if Wisconsin has the wide receivers that they need in an air raid. And then right after them, we have TCU. TCU sitting at the number 19 spot. They were in the national championship game last year. They lose Max Duggan. They lose Quentin Johnston. They do bring back a little bit, especially like on defense. I think their defense will be okay. The offense, I'm really worried about. They lost their offensive coordinator and Garrett Riley. He's at Clemson. So there's just a lot of questions for this TCU team. I think it kind of was a fluke year last year. I think TCU is going to come down to size this year. They might lose like 3 or 4 games depending on like how their schedule lines up. But overall, I think they're going to be a solid team. They will be ranked at the end of the year. And rounding out my top 20, I have the Tulane Green Wave. They beat USC last year in their bowl game. They were very impressive. They bring back almost everything as well. It was kind of shocking that they were ranked 24 in the AP poll. And I couldn't leave them like outside of the top 20. Like they deserve that 20th spot. Their offense is going to be really good again. Their defense is going to be okay. They do have to improve a little bit on that side, but in the conference they're in, they're not going to need as much. I think they can win 12 games again this year. Then moving on at the 21 spot, we have UNC. North Carolina has an amazing offense. They're going to have a really good offense this year, even though Josh Downs is now in the NFL. They do return their Heisman contending quarterback, Drake May. That offense is going to be great. The only problem everyone knows is their defense. Their defense was non-existent last year. It's probably going to be non-existent this year. They did not replace their defensive coordinator. They didn't really gain any ground. So hopefully the schemes are just better and they actually have a chance. I could see them winning 10 games, or maybe 9 to be realistic, if that defense plays a lot better. And then right after UNC, I have Texas Tech. I was surprised that Texas Tech isn't in a lot of people's polls because this team, they beat OU. OU wasn't that great last year, but they still beat them. They beat Texas. Texas was a good team last year, and they bring back everything that they have. I honestly believe that Texas Tech can win 9 games this year, and everyone sleeping on them is just a little foolish in my head. Like, even having them like below Ole Miss and the other teams, it just didn't seem right. I think they're really good and they're going to have a great season. And speaking about Ole Miss, I have them at the 22nd spot. They return Jackson Dart. He's going to be the starting quarterback. They also return Judkins, their running back. He's really good. Ole Miss is going to be really good on offense, especially if Jackson Dart can continue to improve. The only problem with them is their defense. Their defense isn't good at all. They have to improve on every facet. The secondary, the front seven. Ole Miss just has to get better on defense. Lane Kiffin is under a lot of fire. He needs to perform. His best win isn't a good win. And he needs to start winning these big games for Ole Miss if he's going to keep his job. Now, talking about coaches, Shane Beamer for South Carolina has been doing amazing things there. He's been recruiting very well. Last year, they had a great year. They beat Clemson and Tennessee in the same year. Absolutely amazing. They're at my 24th spot going into this season. Spencer Rattler returns at quarterback. They're going to be a good team. I truly do think so. Their defense is definitely going to be like around the same, maybe a little bit improved. I think the offense is going to catch stride, and they might go 9-4 with like a bowl win. It really depends on the strides that Spencer Rattler takes, if he like builds off of last year and just gets better overall, or if he turns back into what he was before they went on that run last year. And then rounding out my top 25, I do have Oklahoma. I really went between Oklahoma and 2 other teams. Those 2 other teams being Texas A&M and Iowa. And I'm going to explain my reason for putting OU in front. My number one reason is they're bringing back Dylan Gabriel. I do think he is a good quarterback, and I do think that Oklahoma is going to be improved on the offense and defensive side of the ball this year. I think that they will probably win 8 or 9 games. So I do really think that they do deserve that top 25 spot, especially at 25. And the reason I did not put Texas A&M there, even though they do have Connor Wegman, he's a good quarterback. He's going to be good. They're going to have a good running back and a good defense. They have a new offensive coordinator. Who knows if Jimbo Fisher is going to let that offensive coordinator call the plays? It could be a big mix-up. There can be a lot of problems, and that's why I have them on right there. A big question mark. Jimbo Fisher has to let Petrino call these plays and get some kind of rhythm going for that team before that they can be like in the top 25. And then lastly, you have Iowa. Iowa, they have a really good defense. They're gonna have a top 5 defense in the country again this year, but their offense is non-existent. They have no offense at all. They do have Cade McNamara. He was at Michigan, but he's not a really big upgrade over Spencer Petras. Let's be honest. He was a game manager at best. I know that's all Iowa really needs, but they have no offensive weapons at all. The wide receivers aren't there. I'm not sure if they brought back their tight end or if he went to the NFL. Someone can let me know about that, but the offense just isn't there yet. They need a couple more pieces, maybe around Cade McNamara, or if people step up, I could see them being a top 25 team, but not right now. And that's going to be the end of the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed my top 25. Let me know if you agree or disagree with what I said and who I got right or wrong in the comments. I'm always up for debating topics. I'm going to be uploading videos weekly. Usually going to be on the weekend after all the games are played, unless something really crazy happens I want to talk about that night. So be sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys after week 0. Peace.